Good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are. How's everyone doing today? Welcome to the Null News. Welcome to the Null News. All right. I gave the 2 minutes. I'm giving 2 minutes. That way we don't just sit here smiling at each other and we can just dig right into the news nowadays. We got some fun stuff coming up today. We have a few things from the security perspective. I have weeded that down a lot more to what I think would actually affect people. Hopefully. We have a good little bit on AI and open source, which I'm pretty excited to share with you guys. And then there was some stuff from the cloud. It's not a ton of big stuff, but we'll try to do it rapid fire. And then I have an article at the end. It's called An Overview of Cloudflare's Logging Pipeline. Now, Cloudflare had a little bit of drama, and maybe we'll open up all of this with drama first. Maybe we'll start talking drama first. There was two things this last week that had a little bit of drama around them. So you know what? We'll start with those. Weeby Wizard, how's it going? I do believe I closed a wrong tab. I don't see I had two pieces of drama. I only see one, which is a shame. So there was two companies that came through with a little bit of drama this week. Cloudflare was one of them. You guys know that I like them, but I'm not opposed to a little bit of drama. Let me find that really quickly, and then we'll jump into it. All right, it's probably in here somewhere. So we're going to come across this at some point because I know it's opened. We just got a lot of tabs. We'll start with the Carta. There was a bit of Carta. Now, if you guys don't know what Carta is basically what a lot of startup technology companies have leveraged to manage their shares pre-IPO. People kind of call it or consider it like the NASDAQ of private companies, basically. So a lot of people that have worked in a startup have leveraged Carta, and they came under fire because basically while they were managing these cap tables for these companies, they were doing secondary sales, basically selling to other people. And the worry came out that Carta was leveraging the information on these cap tables, which there was fairly decent proof that they were, to actually sell to people that had already bought into the company, or sell the shares of people who already were owning part of the company. Now, this maybe the worst aspect of it, and I'm not going to bring it up because it has some strong cursing in it, but I think the worst aspect of this was the response, and I think this is a really good call. CEOs shouldn't respond in the heat of moment. I strongly believe this. If you're the CEO, I know you might love Twitter. It's probably not the right place. That's even if somebody else is calling you out on Twitter, don't respond to it. Or say, thanks for the feedback. Love to talk to you. Have a very canned response because it's hard. You've worked hard. You built it up. Carta has struggled with that. So yeah, anyways, multi-million-dollar cap table. Now, Carta has come out and said that they are exiting the secondary sales because trust is more important to them. So I don't know if that's going to buy them back and get them off the hook. We'll have to see. This is above my pay grade. I don't have to worry about cap tables at this point. So yeah, anyways, that was just a little bit of stuff going on. Yeah. Now, the second piece of a little bit of, what was I calling this? Drama. Yeah, the drama section. Cloudflare laying off some people, or not laying off people, firing people. Now, I don't know which one it is. And that's maybe the part of the drama where they say that there's a big discussion whether it's laying off or firing. And this has to do with benefits and things like that. And I don't want to get into that. The only reason I brought this up was this here. Now, this person here basically recorded their getting laid off. We're not going to watch it. They recorded themselves getting laid off. And I have a couple responses. I'm not getting into the drama. If I was you, don't post this video. If you do have this video, you take it to your lawyer, your worker's lawyer. You don't post it on TikTok. It's not great. No matter what is happening, and I'm not defending Cloudflare here in the least bit. It sounds like, I watched it, that it sounds like they did a terrible job. Their manager wasn't even in this, and that is the worst way to fire or lay off a person, period. Cloudflare did respond. The CEO of Cloudflare did respond to this. It was very canned. They apologized and moved on. What I'm encouraging you, though, nobody likes a gossip. Nobody would like it if I gossiped about my neighbors or about a person I met. Let's say I met you, and then I gossiped on my YouTube channel about you. Nobody likes that. And companies also don't like it. So if you become I'm going to air dirty laundry, again, not defending anything that happened, but this can hurt your career down the in the future. Another issue here is legality. I'm not giving you legal advice, but in the United States, there are different states that have different regards to if you can be recorded without letting them know that you're recording. And the problem with this is it depends on, it's the stricter of the two states, your state and the people you're recording. And there's two people here. So if they did not know they were being recorded, this could be actually illegal. It, again, depends on the state. And this is why anytime you have those automated systems that are recording, they let you know that it's being recorded for the purposes. Again, my advice here is you take this to attorney. You don't post it online. Yes, I guess you're right, Russell. Some people do like gossip and whatnot. My suggestion, take it or leave it, whatever it is. Now, it sounds like what Cloudflare was doing this is a classic structure. I'm not actually a big fan of this, but they basically lay off the lowest 10%. They seem to lay off. They came out with, not lay off, they fired the 40 bottom performers. Whether that's the right thing or to not, I'm not getting into it, but that's what it seemed like. They were laying off 40 out of 1,500. So it is what it is. My professional advice is don't post this on TikTok unless if you want to become a TikTok star. I mean, if that's like your goal, then maybe that gets you there. All right, let's move into security. But again, like I wasn't really wanting to get into the drama. I was just giving my professional opinion on how to deal with that. If you do have a legal beef, you take it to a lawyer. If you don't have a legal beef, sometimes you just have to let bygones be bygones. I have worked at companies I don't enjoy. Yeah. Oh no, I'm sorry, Weeby Wizards. We have some ads going on Twitch. If you're on YouTube, you're probably ad free. So good for you. So good for you. We'll wait just 30 more seconds. We're going to jump into security. There was two big security things. One hitting one of the big tech players with 2 critical fixes, and then another one that hit a small but pretty prominent hardware manufacturer, so we'll talk about those. We had some job cuts that are coming up as well that we will review in just a short second after this ad break. 30 more seconds. 30 more seconds. I need some you know what? That's what I'm going to do for next week. Elevator music with a be right back ads. Just static picture. That's what we're going to do. All right. Everyone's back. Let's talk about security. So there was two big things that I saw. Let me know if you saw something else. Microsoft ships urgent fixes for critical flaws in Windows Kerberos and Hyper-V. You need subscriber-only news. That's devious. That's devious. Okay. Like I said, for all those subscribers out there that got to hear that good part, make sure to subscribe to get those good parts. All right. Microsoft ships urgent fixes for Windows Kerberos and Hyper-V. So if you're leveraging these, if you have a big Hyper-V farm or use Windows Kerberos, make sure to patch immediately. These are remote execution flaws and have high, they're rated 9 out of 10. Pretty high. Actually, you know what? I'm going to post this here from Security Week. It has both CVEs in there if you are leveraging them, want to read more up on them. So go check that out. I know Hyper-V is pretty well used, especially if you use WSL2 and things like that. I don't know about Windows Kerberos. I don't even know how to pronounce it well. The other one is a data breach from Framework. They make the laptops that are ultra repairable, and a lot of influencers have supported them and shilled for them. They seem like I don't like the aspect ratio of the laptops, but I like the concept. That being said, they have reported a data breach. So if you are leveraging Framework, this is probably pretty good to read. It turns out that one of their accountants was phished and fell for the phishing. Unfortunately, that was their breach. It wasn't any fancy hack. It was an accountant that got phished. This is probably the lamest aspect of security, which is just training. It's easy to get phished. Sometimes it can be really, really. You know what? Let me tell you, if your CEO tells you that they need gift cards right now for a client that they're out with, they don't need gift cards. I had this happen to me. It was easy for me because I was like, if I bought you gift cards, what, do you want me to then mail them to you overnight? I'm not close to I don't live close to the CEO. Do you want me to fly these out to you? Yeah, anyways. It can be easy. I feel bad for the person that got phished. It has to be terribly mentally demoralizing that it was you. Yeah. Anyways. All right. We have a section here for job cuts. We have a couple job cuts. I feel like there's a third one that I am missing here, but we have two that we're going to talk about that are coming out. So, unfortunately for Twitch, there is a large job cut in Twitch. 500 employees, or about 35% of staff. This is after 2 rounds of layoffs last year. I actually am going to state that I'm worried about Twitch's future. I'm somewhat worried about Twitch's future. The hope, I almost want to say hope, is that they get spun off instead of just shuttered. I feel like it's too large to fail, but you never know with these things. This will be the 3rd round of layoffs, and they'll be shedding many, many more workers. So yeah. Yeah. The next group is one that I said was probably going to happen. I called this one last year. I don't want to gloat about that because it's people losing their jobs, and the people losing their jobs are not the people that caused them losing their jobs, but Unity Software to cut 25% of its staff in company reset. So this is the company that late last year, whose CEO pretty much hated every consumer of their game engine, made some pretty terrible mistakes. Now, I actually think that this is happening earlier than I expected, because I expected it to hit later this year, because many games that already were in development, they couldn't change which platform they were on, and it would only be new games that weren't being started on it, but it wouldn't affect that much. But it turns out that they have decided to hit the reset button early, and they hurt themselves. This was a self-fulfilling prophecy. Again, not gloating about calling this last year. It was well foreseen. It was well foreseen by many. I do feel for the Unity devs that are out there, because honestly, game engine devs, if those are the people that are there, there's not many companies that hire game engine devs. Now, maybe this was a lot of salespeople or other people and not the game engine devs, but game engine devs is a kind of niche thing with not a ton of companies that actually hire them. So, yeah. Yeah. All right. That is it for job cuts. I have some stuff for open source, some interesting things that are going on. We'll cover the biggest news first. Then we have some things around AI that I saw, and then we'll jump into the clouds. All right, let's jump into... Oh, that's right, Weeby Wizard. Google was the other one. I knew that there was a third that I saw, and I guess I didn't capture a link to or a source for. Google was another one that had some layoffs. All right. As almost everyone has been anticipating and waiting for, on January 10th, 2024, OpenTofu announces general... what? There we go. OpenTofu from the Linux Foundation, which, if you guys don't know what OpenTofu is, it is their fork of Terraform. So this is Terraform. Why OpenTofu? I'm not entirely sure of the name, but the open source Terraform, you can think of it as the equivalent of OpenSearch, announces general availability. So for all of you infrastructure as code people who want to keep it, stick it to the man and keep it open source, OpenTofu is now generally available. That's maybe the most exciting news in the open source. Another piece of software that got generally available and is part of the open source community is Exism. It's written in Rust, which means it's fantastic. It's a WASM, a runtime, or is a lightweight framework for building WASM applications. Not a runtime, sorry, my bad. I think it has a runtime in it though, right? Yeah. Okay, so it's a whole bundle. It's a whole bundle. I've never used it. Looks interesting, but I saw that it went GA. So there's that. I've been doing a lot of research myself on WASM and trying to understand its security under the hood, because I've gotten a little bit of mixed signals on here. Maybe it's me. If you're an expert in security and would like to talk to me about the security of WASM versus something like a container, I would love to talk about it. All right. Open source needs a new mission: protecting users. So this article, I don't know. I wanted to get your guys' thoughts on it. The idea is that open source as we know it is dead, doesn't have a purpose, and that it needs a new purpose. And usually open source code you can trust with your data because you, in theory, can actually look at the code and see if it's doing something nefarious. But I kind of feel like an open source project's goal is its mission. Like whatever you made that project for, if it was to save children from trafficking, it's to save children from trafficking. If it was to draw a picture, it's to draw a picture. Like that is the goal of your open source project. I don't know. I don't know why this is in the news. I read it and I was like, that's interesting. I would love your guys' take on it. Does open source need a unified focus, a unified goal? Is that its goal? Is to have a mission as a collective? I know a lot of open source projects do treat privacy a lot more. That's more important to them than their counterparts, because a lot of counterparts are actually trying to make money by selling your data. I just had never thought of this as the unifying goal. I don't know why I brought this up. It's just something I was thinking about. All right, Russell. I appreciate that I asked that quandary. All right, let's move on to... Oh, man. I always mispronounce them. I like that take, Weeby Wizard. I don't think it should be to have a goal of open source, but I think advocacy of safety and privacy is important. Absolutely. Absolutely. I was not diminishing the protection of individuals or users. Absolutely not. All right. I'm going to call it this. I believe it's wrong because I've actually heard this pronounced before. So I'm pretty sure I'm wrong, but that's what I'm going to go with. Marantis, they brought Docker Enterprise, if you don't remember. Marantis bought Docker Enterprise, and they've kind of been this infrastructure as a service company for the enterprises. And there's been highs and lows with it, and they've changed how they work fundamentally. They switched from OpenStack, like really pushing OpenStack, to Docker when they bought Docker Enterprise. And they swapped CEOs a little bit. But it turns out that their old CEO is coming back as their CEO now. So they're playing the musical chairs again. Now, I don't know if it will affect Docker Enterprise or anything that they're doing. I'm not sure. But if you are a user of Marantis, then, I mean, you should be in the know. Usually when these... The big deal isn't the CEO. The big deal isn't the CEO. It's that the fact that the CEO is changing, usually the CEO changing means that the board is looking for a change in how the company operates. So you can usually expect, they try not to make it too abrupt, but you can usually expect with the change of a CEO, the company to shift. Sometimes it's abrupt, but if they're doing it right, it's not abrupt. They're usually looking to shift some. So you can expect Marantis to shift a little in the future. So we'll see. We'll see what that means. There's my second open tofu. This is the one my tabs were out of order. Okay. A double standard from Unity. So Unity laying off 25% of its staff. I found this. Unity is actually banning this asset. This asset, you basically expose libvlc through Unity, so you can use VLC in Unity. VLC is under the LGPL code base, and basically their Unity Asset Store package got disabled and banned off the Unity Asset Store for the LGPL. And the interesting part about this is that Unity itself uses the LGPL with several of its dependencies. So it's an interesting thing. I'm bringing this to light because if I could do anything to help these people, I would. And so maybe me bringing a little bit of light to it is doing that. It sucks that your application got removed and your account got banned. It is technically under their terms that you can't release something under the LGPL. It's probably because their marketplace isn't set up to distribute the code properly. And because they can't do that, they don't want to be on the hook for the licensing. That would be my guess. Now, does it kind of suck that you can't do this? Yes, it does. And that's really it for the open source section of the news. We have some stuff here in AI, some pretty exciting stuff. There's an AI that is going to fix your coding. All of you functional bros out there, you don't have to worry anymore because there's an AI that's going to make sure that your code is mathematically correct, if the AI can guess correctly. Now, I actually dug into this one quite a bit, so we're going to spend a little bit of time on that. But before we spend time on that, we're going to cover a little bit of some other AI news. Some other AI news. OpenAI stated very plainly for people, OpenAI says it's impossible to create ChatGPT without copyrighted content. Now, they're getting sued by many people, and this is where courts are going to figure out all of this AI stuff, and it's starting to come to a head. I told you we would watch throughout the year as this goes. This is one of those things. So the New York Times is suing them for their copyrighted material, and their defense so far has been it would have been impossible without copyrighted material. I don't think that this court case is going to go very well for them. That's all I'm going to say. Because if that's their full defense, and hopefully they have a better defense, the last time I tried, it would have been impossible to do something without breaking the law. I don't think the court would have cared. So, anyways, that's the big AI news today. The littler AI news is the Rabbit R1. CES released this. It's a phone, but without any real way to interact with it except for a lousy AI that's on board that needs to know what you want from it. That's the only way to interact with it is through the AI. The AI talks to the apps on it. That's the only way. We'll see. We'll see if this is the future, but my guess with something like this is that iPhone and Android will be able to adopt it and implement it faster and better before you can. They have the engineering power behind it. It's a phone without a UI. And Android and iOS are going to be able to leverage that faster. It's a scroll wheel and a button. I tried to look up how you are supposed to use it, and I saw something, but it was really confusing to me at the CES show about how you're supposed to interact with the AI, because you get a scroll wheel and a button and a camera. It's watching you, and that's how it knows what to do. Now, this type of thing is interesting. I think there is some validity to using the types of AIs that we want to judge possible intents, and it probably could get good enough to do that. So I do think that this type of thing is theoretically possible in the near future. I'm not going to buy this little square. It's also really expensive. All right. But there is a bigger deal. like I said, all of you functional bros out there, you don't need to worry about functional programming anymore because bugs are of the past. We have solved them. Researchers develop technique to prevent software bugs. Now, I dug into this because I was like, whoa, this sounds too good to be true. And you know what they say about too good to be true. Now, it turns out there's a white paper on it that you can go read here. And I'll leave this link in the description. And I read it. It's not that in-depth. It's only it's 14 pages, but 6 of them, I believe, are references. Related work. Yeah. So about half of it is references. So it's about 6 pages. It's not too long. Now, I'm going to tell you the concept of it, and then we'll get into why it underwhelms and what I find with a lot of these AI models like this. So this is a LLM, a large language model. It's not a generative one. Well, it's kind of a generative, but not in the way that you think. It's not generating the code. What it's trying to do is generate the proof that the code is correct. So that is the goal of this. Now, what you can go through and find like how they iterated on this, and how they iterated on it is actually pretty cool because they trained this LLM on different code bases and things. But the nitty gritty of what it does is basically goes through and makes proofs for these, like mathematical proofs that it's either doing what it's supposed to or not doing what it's supposed to. And it actually achieves a pretty high success rate. In my opinion, it's higher than I would have expected. Let me think. It's like something percentage. Generates proofs 57% of the time. Now, it uses Thor and Balder together. So those are 2 different AIs. One that were leveraged together to get this 57% of the time. Now, there's 2 problems with this. First is it's wrong all the other times. So it's only about half the time correct on whether the proof is correct, which is not great. But even if we could get this to 95%, when I dug into it, these were the largest code samples that I could find that the proofs were being generated for, which means it's only proving very, very small bits of code. Now, I actually have thought of a way that this could be used on something like small functions. So as long as your function is small enough, you could maybe, in theory, generate a proof for it if it was a mathematically thing, which this lends itself to something like a functional language that looks to be provable. Now, this isn't going to help with all languages because not all languages are mathematically provable, unfortunately. But yeah, very, very small, very simple logic. So I don't know. I'm interested in this because I actually have thought that we're trying to solve the wrong problem. And this is, I'm going to let you in on a little insider secret. Us developers don't write that much code. If you look at the latest statistic, it's like 1 hour a day that we're actually writing code. And in that hour a day, the top performers are 2 hours a day. Of that 2 hours of the top performers, since we're all top performers here, 70% of the time, you're debugging. LLM should be targeting debugging my goodness, well before they start targeting generation of code as you're typing. Maybe the generation is easier, but it's not where we spend a lot of our time. We spend a lot of our time debugging. And I think that's a different problem altogether. Cody actually does take a stab at this. And this is another stab at that problem. So I'm actually really excited about it. While I'm a little down on actually what it's capable of doing and only getting just above 50% accuracy with this, this is, I think, personally, a better step in the right direction than the other types of, machine learning. There we go. I had the words. All right. That was it. Now we can move on to cloud news. Who's up for some cloud news? Anybody else see anything interesting in AI? Are you ready for all of your phones to be sending your data to remote servers to have AIs mulled on them? Hey, Bunkai. Bonokai. How are you from YouTube? It's good to see you guys. We're doing the news. We're going through the news, and it's time for cloud news unless somebody else has something. All right. We'll start with Azure. We're going to actually rapid fire a lot of these because there was a lot of little things that I found that weren't big deals. Now, maybe GCP has the biggest piece of news out there, and we're going to cover that kind of in depth because I think people need to understand it. Yeah. People need to understand it. It sounds better than it is. That's maybe the catch. All right. Announcing the public preview of Azure Arc Visual Studio Code extension. So if you guys are using Arc, which is their way to run my goodness, Azure in your own data center, or, kind of a quarter of Azure, just some of their core services in your own data center, then Arc is your thing. And this brings Arc to Visual Studio Code. So if you're trying to use Visual Studio Code, I haven't used it, but it's in public preview now. So this is kind of cool. It's out there. There is the general availability of the premium SSD v2 Ultra disks. Yeah. Support with trusted launch. These are pretty cool. They're some of the fastest network attached drives that I have tested. They are really good. They're really good. So if you are in Azure, I would definitely and care about. Now, they're still network attached, so be careful about that. There could be hiccups in the network and things like that. Do be careful, but they are pretty good. Nothing beats a direct attach NVMe. Azure load testing support for WebDriver sampler plugin for Apache JMeter. JMeter is kind of the old dog on the block. A lot of people use it, and this is good to see the support for it. So if this is you, hopefully now I have made you aware that it's there. There you go. Let's jump into AWS. Amazon Elasticcache now supports Memcache. So I asked in a previous stream if people still used Memcache, and I suppose this is the answer, is that yes, it does. 1.6.22 is now available for you to use and leverage, so go ahead and upgrade if you haven't already. Amazon EKS introduces simplified controls for IAM cluster access management. This actually happened in December of last year. I don't think I commented on it because it took me by surprise, so I thought I would go ahead and comment on it. This is awesome. IAM in EKS in AWS is a dumpster fire, or has been a dumpster fire, and it's super complicated to do anything very well. So I'm happy to see this, although I don't know the full extent of it. I haven't quite gotten to test all of it out, but I did miss this over the holidays. Amazon Connect outbound campaigns voice dialing API is generally available. I don't really know. That's a whole bunch of words. Outbound campaigns voice dialing. So I guess ability to voice. I don't know exactly what this is. It sounded interesting. It's part of their machine learning stuff. So it's actually like using your voice. And so it seems kind of interesting at best. AWS announces enhanced sign-in experience with AWS console apps for Android. Again, just a little thing for anybody using Android. If you're trying to sign in with the console app, it's been a pain. It's nicer now. There you go. Amazon RDS for DB2 now supports up to 5,000 database users. If you've been wanting more database users to authenticate to your database, you can now support up to 5,000. I believe before this, it was like 500 or 1,000. So this is quite a bit more. I never really have more than use than like 2, but you know, some people like to keep it real. And that's it for AWS. Now we'll move on to GCP. GCP has 2 things in the queue. The first thing is database upgrade made easy, in place major version upgrades in Cloud Squirrel. Now their Cloud Squirrel database is basically a Postgres database. They are just now angry at me because I said that. I'm sure it's better in many, many ways. But the nice thing is you can now in place major version upgrades. This is actually a pretty big deal. It means it's a pretty big deal. It's cool. It's cool. This is actually really hard to do too. It's hard to do. Cloud switching just got easier. Removing data transfer fees when moving off Google Cloud. Now, this sounds really good, but the data transfer fees only are removed if you actually exit their cloud. Like, you have to close your account with them. Not only that, if you go in here and read how to actually use it, how to actually get it, you have to actually pay for the data transfer and then apply by mailing them to get a refund. That's right. You have to apply, and then it will be given to you in a statement credit on the cloud that you quit. Let that sink in. The cloud that you have quit, like, you have to leave. You can't just export your data. The cloud that you're leaving will give you a statement credit. Did someone's grandma come up with that idea? I don't understand it. Like, I read through it because I saw Corey Quinn post about it, making fun of it. And I was like, well, I'm going to cover it in the news. And I went to cover it in the news. I was like, he's absolutely right. This is like the dumbest thing. It's going to be hard to leverage. Basically, what you have to do is you have to have spend on it that you haven't paid for to get the credit. So basically, you have to transfer at the very beginning of the month. Don't pay that transfer cost that you've accrued and use the credit for that before your account closes. It's very difficult to leverage. Maybe technically possible. Technically possible. But not easy. Hello, YouTube. How are you guys doing? We're doing well. We're doing the news like we do every Sunday. We just go over cloud news. We discuss the topics. And we're actually coming towards the end. We have an overview of Cloudflare's logging pipeline. Now, they were, if you were here at the beginning of this, they were a part of a little bit of drama this week. We covered that earlier. Serves you right for choosing GCP in the first place. Possibly. And we have an article to go over. I haven't read it. We're going to try to learn together from it. They have a logging pipeline. Usually they do a pretty good job. They say it's only a 6-minute read. It's not terribly long from the scroll bar, but I haven't looked over it. So let's get into it. An overview of Cloudflare's logging pipeline. One of the roles of Cloudflare's observability platform team is managing the operation, implementation, and maintenance of our internal logging pipelines. These pipelines are used to ship debugging logs from every service across Cloudflare's infrastructure to a centralized location, allowing our engineers to operate and debug their services in near real time. In this post, we're going to go over what it looks like, how we achieve high availability, and how we meet service level objectives while shipping close to 1 million log lines per second. All right, now I want to stop here and just let everyone know, not everybody ships 1 million log lines We're covering this to learn, but I don't want you to think that you have to replicate their thing to handle your logs. If you're doing 1,000 lines per second, that's a completely different thing than 1,000,000 lines per second. All right, so we're going to learn from it, but not every problem is the exact same. Just trying to make sure that we're clear on that. Logging itself is a simple concept. Virtually every programmer has written Hello World program at some point. Printing something to the console like that is logging, whether intentional or not. Sometimes it's not intentional. Sometimes you leak keys this way. Logging pipelines have been around since the beginning of computing itself, starting with putting string lines in a file, or simply in memory or industry. Our industry quickly outgrew the concept of each machine in the network having its own log to centralize logging. So what they're saying here is, like, in a distributed network, it's a pain if you have to go to each machine. So especially where you have several services that could handle the request. First, you have to find which machine handled the service, and then you have to go to that machine. How do you find which machine handled the service? You could just have to check them all, which that would be ridiculous. Or, you have some way to know, like a centralized logging stack and metrics. To centralize logging and to provide scaling behind a single machine, we use protocols such as BSD syslog protocol to provide a method for individual machines to send logs over the network to a collector, providing a single pane of glass for logs over an entire set of machines. If you guys haven't seen it, there's a vector project I think is pretty cool on this topic. Pretty fast, too. Our logging infrastructure at Cloudflare is a bit more complicated, but still holds these fundamental principles. In the beginning, logs at Cloudflare started the same way as any others, with a print line. Generally, systems don't call print line directly, however, they outsource that logic to a logging library. Systems at Cloudflare use various logging libraries such as Go's ZeroLog, C++, KJlog, I've never used KJlog, or Rust's appropriately named log. However, anything that is able to print lines to a program's standard out, standard error streams is compatible with our pipeline. This is an important thing if you're ever doing this. Make it standard out and standard error. That way, no application has to change. There's no specific logging library support. It's the best way to do logging. I have seen things where it's like, oh, use our logging library, and it's all like special, and don't do that. Make it easy on yourself. Use standard out, standard error. And it just works. It just works. You can drop in a new pipeline and you don't have to change the tools that you're using in your code. This offers our engineers the greatest flexibility in choosing tools that work for that. Right. Yeah, I mean, a new team goes with a new language is used. You got to move to Rust because you realized Go sucks, and you're now screwed because your library was in Go. Because we use systemd for most of our service management, those standard out, standard error streams are generally piped into systemd journal, which handles the local machine logs. With its rate limit burst and rate limit interval configuration, this gives us a simple knob to control the output of any given service on a machine. This has given our logging pipeline the colloquial name of the journal pipeline. However, it's like they have a distributed log. They need to, come together. I'm sorry. However, as we will see, the pipeline has expanded far beyond. Okay, come on, let's get into it. Syslog ng. While journald provides us with methods to collect logs on every machine, logging onto each machine individually is impractical. We already covered this. Absolutely. To this end, the next step of our pipeline is syslog ng. Syslog ng is a daemon that implements the aforementioned BSD syslog protocol. In our case, I am surprised I read that. I am proud of myself. You guys can say whatever you want. I read that fairly fluently. It's like I know English. In our case, it reads logs from the journald and applies other layers of rate limiting. So this rate limiting is interesting. They've talked about it a couple times now, and I'm not quite sure. I guess they're just limiting from the individual machines to the centralized server. That's my understanding at this point. It then applies rewriting rules to add common fields, such as the name of the machine that emitted the log. Okay, this is actually also really cool. If you're doing a logging thing and you want these centralized logs, this is really important because what happens is you search over the logs, and if your application doesn't inject the name of the machine, which it shouldn't inject, it shouldn't know the name of the machine, it shouldn't care what machine it's on. It's this thing that then applies that tag. And, if you're talking about something like Loki, which is another cool project around this, you can add these tags to the things and be able to search that way as well. So in your centralized thing, you can search by machine, you can search by time, you can search by, you can get logs by a bunch of different metrics. And what this does is it basically says your application and your library doesn't need to know those types of things. The machine itself that's collecting it, in this case, their syslog-ng, is adding those things itself. Very useful. All of this stuff, I take it back. At the beginning of this, I said, they're going to do it for scale and you don't have to. These are very good things if you're in a distributed system where your application is not a monolith. If you're a monolith, you don't have to really care because it's on one machine. I mean a monolith with a single machine, or maybe two or three. But any fairly distributed system, any Kubernetes, this type of thing is really important and really good. The name of the data center and the machine is in, it has the data center, like the region if you were in a cloud and whatnot, and the state of the data center that machine. It wraps the log in a JSON wrapper and forwards it to our core data servers. Journal D itself is an interesting feature that makes it difficult for some of our use cases. It guarantees a global ordering of every log on the machine. While this is convenient for a single node case, it imposes the limitation that Journal D is single-threaded. Bum, 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 bum. This means that for our heavier workloads where there are millions, see, I screwed up that sentence. I can't read that fast. I'm just making up words. I literally guess the next word, and sometimes I get ahead of myself. This means that for our heaviest workloads, or heavier workloads, where every millisecond of delay counts, we provide a more direct path to our pipeline. In particular, we offer a Unix domain socket that syslog-ng listens on. This socket operates as a separate source of logs into the same pipeline that the journal D log. This sounds complicated. Don't do this. But allows for greater throughput by ensuring the need of a global ordering that Journal D enforces. Logging in this manner has a bit more involved than outputting logs to the standard outstreams, as services have to. Yeah, I was going to say this. This means that you can't just you actually have to pipe them to these things. Okay, so this is only used in certain services. That's interesting. So they have two different ways to log. That sucks. I wonder if they could get Journal D to allow you to flip some setting, to be multi-threaded and not ensure order. And the management overhead that this requires. That sounds like a lot. Our logging pipeline, the history. Our logging pipeline, I don't know why I said that. I had a joke, but it didn't go. And I realized that, right as I was saying. Our logging pipeline is a critical service at Cloudflare. It should be a critical service. Logging and metrics should be some of your most critical infrastructure. Most well thought out. If you have those two, you know what's coming before it comes. Before it hits you in the face and your services go down, you might know that there's a problem. Otherwise, without these, you're kind of just driving with a blindfold on, literally. Any potential delays or missing data can cause downstream effects that have that may hinder or even prevent the resolving of customer-facing incidents. Because of this strict requirement, we have to offer redundancy in our pipeline. This is where the operation we call logx comes into play. If you remember right, they had an outage earlier this year where they had an entire data center go down. They did mention in that their logging and metrics were part of the very redundant service that could be on any data center and didn't actually ever go down. So that is cool that actually worked, even though their main data center went down. We operate two main... I was talking about it. We operate two main core data... I know oddly a lot about how Cloudflare operates. And their Europe one was the one they tried to fail over to, and that got screwy. Anyways, we operate two main core data centers, one in the United States, one in Europe. From each machine, we ship logs to both of these data centers. We call these endpoints log A and log B. Ooh, they ship both. Every machine ships to both the US and EU. My goodness. We ship logs to both of these data centers. We call these endpoints log A and log B. The log A and log B receivers will insert the logs into a Kafka topic for later consumption. Okay, so they're just, as they ship these logs, they're just shipping them into Kafka. This is kind of a kudos to Kafka that they can handle billions per second. By duplicating the data at two different locations, we achieve a level of redundancy that can handle the failure of either data center. The next problem, and this they did actually prove work. Their main data center in the United States went down. I wish I had the recording for that episode. The next problem we encountered is that we have many data centers all around the world, which at any time due to changing internet conditions may become disconnected from one or both core data centers. Wow, I didn't realize that. If the data center is disconnected for long enough, we may end up in the situation where we drop logs to either A or B receivers. This would result in an incomplete view of logs from one data center and is unacceptable. Logx was designed to alleviate this problem. In the event that syslog-ng fails to send logs to either log A or log B, it will actually send the logs twice to the available receiver. The second copy will be marked as actually destined for the other logx receiver. When a logx receiver receives such a log, it will insert it into a different Kafka queue known as the dead letter queue. We then use Kafka Mirror Maker to sync this dead letter queue across the data centers that was inaccessible. I don't understand this. There's a picture though, so maybe this sounds like if it can't reach both, it sends another one to both. But if it can't reach both, how is that going to make it there? Am I missing something here? I have to be missing something here. All right, let's see this. Edge server, service journal D, system log ng. So this is what I don't understand. It's saying it can't reach either of these data centers. Thus, it will send another message to either of these data centers. Am I missing something here? I feel like I'm missing something here. If this green ones goes down, what makes them think the red ones will go through? The dead letter queues are here, the B failover receivers. These are the dead letter queues. They graphed it going to the same data centers. Like, oh, let's see. Okay. The next problem we encounter is that we have many data centers all around the world, which at any time due to changing internet conditions may become disconnected from one or both core data centers. So they're trying to solve for both core data. I have got to, one second. We're going to really quickly draw this out. If you have the core data centers here, A and B, and this is the other data center that's shipping logs, and you get disconnected from both, it doesn't matter if you send a redundant entry because you're disconnected from both. Now, if if their statement was that there was a disconnect from this one, and that it was just, but if you're saying that you're purely disconnected from these core data centers, if the data center is connected for long enough, we may end up in the situation where we drop logs to either the log A or log B receivers. This would result in an incomplete view of our logs in one data center and unacceptable. Okay, now in the event that a single data center goes offline, this does work. In the event that a single data center goes offline, so let's say the US core went offline, the dead letter queue would go here, which then would mirror over here, so that this one would be caught up. It's basically, you know how in Raft, the leader had the ability to catch up a follower? That's basically what they're implementing here. But if they both disconnect, that doesn't solve that. And that was part of their condition here. Okay, well, they have a flaw, I think. I'm not smart enough to catch their flaws. Maybe they didn't write it that there's some edge here that's catching the dead letter queue. But they said the failover receivers are in their data center. So maybe it's outside of their data centers. I don't know. That could be the case, and then maybe that makes more sense. When logs arrive at the core data centers, we buffer them in a Kafka queue. This provides I really do like Kafka. I know it's terrible and awesome at the same time. It's kind of like Kubernetes. If you have the need for it, it's awesome. But it's also Kafka. Firstly, it means that any consumer of the logs can be added without any changes. They only need to register with Kafka as a consumer group on the logs topic. Secondarily, it allows us to tolerate transient failures of the consumers without losing any data. Because the Kafka clusters in the core data centers are much larger than any single machine, Kafka allows us to tolerate up to 8 hours of total outage for our consumers without losing data. This is proven to be enough to recover without data loss from all but the largest incidents. I think they're referring to the one. They had one. When it comes to partitioning our Kafka data, we have an interesting dilemma. Rather arbitrarily, the syslog protocol only supports timestamps up to microseconds. For our faster log emitters, this means that the syslog protocol cannot guarantee ordering with timestamps alone. To work around this limitation, we partition our logs using a key made up of both the host and the service name. Because Kafka guarantees ordering within a partition, this means that any logs from a service on a machine are guaranteed to be ordered between themselves. Unfortunately, because so basically, they have using the service and the machine and the timestamp, they can get the order of that the logs happen for that service. Not necessarily between that service and another service on the machine, which if you're doing microservices correctly, there shouldn't be a requirement for that. So that's good. Unfortunately, because logs from a service can have vastly different rates between different machines, this can result in unbalanced Kafka partitions. Oh, cool. Oh, cool. OpenTelemetry logs. Awesome. I hope they release something on their OpenTelemetry logs. Ooh, storage. Okay, so storage should be interesting because if you're hitting 1 million lines per second, that's a lot. That's a lot. Even if it's just text. With the logs in Kafka, we can proceed to insert them into a more long-term storage. For storage, we operate 2 backends, an Elasticsearch Logstash-Kibana, the classic Elk, and a ClickHouse cluster. For Elasticsearch, we split our cluster of 90 nodes into a few types. It seems like a lot. I know I say 1 million lines, but 90 nodes is a large cluster. I wasn't expecting it to be this large. I was expecting like 10. The first being the main nodes. These nodes act as the Elasticsearch masters and coordinate insertion into the clusters. We then have data nodes that handle the actual insertion and storage. Finally, we have an HTTP nodes that handle HTTP queries. Wait. They didn't tell us how many of each. So they have 3 different types of nodes. They have the leaders, they have the data nodes, and then they have the HTTP nodes that handles the incoming traffic. Traditionally, in the Elasticsearch cluster, all the data nodes will also handle HTTP. So they basically just split their data and web traffic, which is smart. The data ones can then be geared and designed towards that data, whether that's more drives or whatnot. And the HTTP ones can be putting those PCI slots to network. That makes sense. It's smart. If you're designing this, yeah, it makes sense. On the ClickHouse side, I've never used ClickHouse. Who's used ClickHouse? Is it good? We operate a 10-node ClickHouse cluster that stores our service logs. We are in the process of migrating this to be our primary storage. So they're moving to ClickHouse instead of the Elk stack. But at the moment, it only provides an alternate interface to our same logs in Elasticsearch provide, allowing our engineers to use either Lucene through the Elk stack or SQL and Bash scripts through the ClickHouse interface. So they just replicate both of them. Cool. I think this is what's next. As Cloudflare continues to grow, our demands on our observability system and our logging pipeline in particular continue to grow with it. This means that we're always thinking ahead to what will allow us to scale and improve our experience for our engineers. On the horizon, we have a number of projects to further that goal, including increase our multi-tenancy capabilities with better resource insights for our engineers, migrating the syslog ng pipeline towards open telemetry. It's a good step. Tail sampling rather than our probabilistic head sampling we have at the moment. Better balancing of our Kafka cluster. So I feel like this is part of the open telemetry. I feel like open telemetry should help them balance their Kafka clusters. This is very interesting to me with the tail sampling rather than the probabilistic head sampling. I would love for them to do a write-up on that. I think there's a lot to learn there. It's a good article. Yeah, I think that's like a decent, like, I liked it because I think it has a decent how to do logs in a microservice architecture, if that's you. But I feel like it was pretty basic too. Maybe not as good as I thought it was going to be. If you think there's a particularly fun article to read next week, please let me know and I will, I'll put it in the queue. It's hard. I can't read them ahead of time or else I'm not reading with you guys. So please make sure to share those on the Discord or let me know. Otherwise, did we just get an ad break? I think we just got an ad break. Fantastic. Fantastic. You guys won't even know that I'm ending the news here. Won't even know. You'd be watching your ad. I'm just milking this ad, by the way. Yeah. You guys don't even know it. You gotta sip this hot chocolate. It's cold here. Woke up. It was 0 Fahrenheit. Ugh. Yeah. That's right, Russell. And right as the ad stops, you understand the game. Which I'm a horrible person. I have nothing to do for the next 2 minutes. Yeah, I'm good. I have nothing to do. This is fantastic. Do let me know if there's articles you guys would like me to read at the end. I'm gonna try to get more of these out and edited into their short form version, not shorts. So hopefully you guys get these live streams and stuff broken out throughout the week, so you guys have some things to watch if you like to watch segments of it. And we'll see how people like them. I'm trying. I don't know what I'm doing on my main channel right now. I'm actually kind of tomorrow I have a video about HTMX and my take on it as of right now. But I don't know what I'm going to do on my main channel. I don't know what people would like to see. I feel like I've kind of floundered with it. I'm not sure. I feel like I put a lot of pressure to like make animations and graphics, and I suck at making animations and graphics, so it makes me make fewer videos because it's like, oh, I have to do that. So well, Russell, I've been working on the code base for it. I can actually record the hash map one. The hash map one just requires some maybe animations that I haven't wanted to make yet. Maybe I'll get on those. I'll get working on it. I have the hash map one and then the consensus. So we did raft, which is going to let us do consensus. The next part of that raft consensus is actually plugging the raft consensus engine into actually leveraging the backend database, actually leveraging the log. So we got to do that. So we kind of have the two parts now. We have the raft consensus and we have the database, but they don't mix quite yet. So we need to do that. We got to mix those together. Do you guys want to try doing that next Saturday? I can do that next Saturday. Yeah. If you guys would like to see that next Saturday, let me know. I'll be prepared to try it. I've not done that. And this week I can work on the indexing. I'd love your guys' feedback because like I love making videos. I'm not very good at making animations though. Direct text injection. Do you guys know what that is? No. I thought about making like a Kubernetes video. I've been slacking on doing anything Kubernetes. And I feel bad about that. And the worst part is it's kind of like Kubernetes isn't exciting. And so like there's not much I don't know what I could help educate people on. Like most of the content I could make to educate people is already out there. So I'm not sure there either. What is direct text injection? I can just look it up, I guess. Oh, it's content spoofing. Oh, okay. So it's just not direct text injection is just a client-side vulnerability where you get basically the same as you're just not sanitizing your input. Fair. Sanitize all your inputs. Don't trust anything a user has ever sent you. Never ever trust anything, especially if Russell's sending it to you. But you know, I'm just joking. But no, don't trust what your users send you. That's sanitize every single input that's ever given you. Yeah, let me know. Let me know like what type of videos you guys would like on the main channel. I love making videos. I have fun doing it. I need to get better about doing it, and that's what I think has kept me from making some of them. Is I feel like maybe they're not up to the standard that most YouTube videos are. And I need to maybe make them move a little bit faster. So I need to figure out how to get the same amount of information across in a little quicker pace. I probably just need to like bite the bullet and animate stuff a lot and just learn to get a little faster at it. I think that like with the binary search tree, I wanted to do this like cool animation where they come out and like you can actually like follow the line as it searches, but that just got like bogged me down and almost made me not release that video because I hated the animation that I had. And yeah, I released it, but I hated it. I still hate it. Yeah. Anyhow, let's go raid something. Something. Not something, someone. Let's raid somebody. Let's see if there's anybody to raid. Here. Let's see. Let's see. Like I said, not something. Somebody else. My bad. Sometimes English is difficult. Let's see. Who do we have? Do we have anybody doing Rust? Rust. Oh, this search is terrible. This search is terrible. This search didn't help me at all. Last time this happened, fun story. I dropped us into a language that nobody spoke. That was fun. They were programming in Rust though. Just nobody understood what they were. Nobody understood what they were saying. I focused so hard on what they were using. I didn't even look what language. It was pretty amazing. I was proud of myself. I was pretty proud of myself. I don't know why I'm struggling with this. There's just not very much on right now. There's not a whole lot on right now. You know what I found here? Working on Scuffle. It's open source. We're gonna go raid this person. I don't know them, but we're going to do it. We're gonna see what they do. We're gonna see what they do. All right. I will see you guys there. Thank you so much for joining. I'll see you guys in a couple of days.